Awesome. Well, thank you all for having me. I created a Google Doc, and Annie, did you send that out before or not yet? Okay. Well, we'll get there in a minute, but I created a Google Doc that we'll get to in a little while for everyone to write in their Twitter handles. That way we can all follow each other, share hashtags, share accounts that you like to follow and everything. But yeah, thank you for having me here. As Natasha said, I am from Johns Hopkins, so Annie and I worked together in her previous job, and I was up here for a conference anyway, so thank you all for having me. I'm not sure where to, look, so sorry if I am awkward with that. But I'm really excited to do this. I've done Twitter workshops probably 3 or 4 times now, just at the request of some grad students at Hopkins, knew I was on it, and they wanted to be on it. They had questions about it, so I was just like, sure, why not? Let's start teaching it. So yeah, I want today to be pretty casual. This is about social media, which is a casual social platform. It's not as buttoned up as LinkedIn. So it's a place where you can kind of have fun and kind of stretch your wings and your personality while still tying in the rigor of your science. So just a brief agenda of today. So we're going to start off with kind of the benefits of Twitter, what types of things you can get out of it, and then we'll go into the basics of Twitter. So how many of you, I guess I can't do a show of hands. Well, I guess the people in the room, how many of you are really, really new to using Twitter professionally? Okay, and how many of you have an account and have tweeted for a little bit? Okay, cool. So I am going back to Twitter 101. We'll explain what is a retweet versus a like versus a retweet with a comment. How do you use the hashtag? What's the handle? What's the username? All of that stuff, just so we're all on the same page. And then we have a goal of maybe doing 1 tweet for those of you who are new to the platform. I know that first tweet can be scary. So you can draft a tweet today and we can give opinions. And then we'll go into kind of the professionalism side of things, safety, ethics, the rigor of sharing your research, and then some other uses of Twitter, such as at conferences, for outreach, SciComm, the analytics, how to put together a thread, and then we'll go into the Q&A session. Does that sound good? And if you have any questions, as I said, ask them now or save them for the end. So, oh, that's a little delayed. Okay. So why I love Twitter. So over 330 million people use Twitter every month. And I love this cartoon because imagine you had the opportunity to network with thousands of accomplished scientists every day. And I actually edit this because it's really, you're talking to so many more people than just scientists. There are medical practitioners, students, public health professionals, academics, patients, authors, policymakers, funders, your future employers and your future employees, potential collaborators, and then everyone else in the world that is using the platform. And what's awesome about Twitter is that, yes, you could have had conversations with these people, through many different other means, but Twitter breaks down the walls, both physical and, whatever, that you usually have for talking with these people. And it makes it so easy. Really, really easily, just through your computer screen. So we'll start off, and maybe some of you who are on mics can unmic, but I just want to get your guys' opinion about what are your kind of fears or concerns about using social media professionally. Does anyone have any?
Not getting any likes.
Fake news.
Fake news, yeah. Someone
I said not getting any likes.
Not getting any likes.
Not getting any likes, yeah.
Offending somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of getting canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, publicly shamed kind of thing.
So saying the wrong thing.
Or something in general.
Yep, absolutely.
Getting some chat notifications.
Okay. Are there chats going on? I can't see them.
Informal setting, Sarah said.
What did she say?
Informal setting.
Yep, being informal and
Yes.
how informal are you allowed to be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Kaushik said everything is public. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So these are all concerns that people have. So one of the biggest fears is I don't want to be visible. I think it's funny, kind of the millennial generation, we grew up at a time where we weren't on the internet, and then we put everything on the internet, and then people were like, no, don't be on the internet. So we took ourselves off. But now we are getting back on the internet, but in a way where we're really controlling and curating what's on the internet. So it's like our generation is like kind of creeping back in and in a really curated manner. And that's what I like about the platform, is that you can really control and curate what the content is on there. So some people, and this didn't come up now, but some people are like, it's a waste of time. I don't have time to tweet. Absolutely, Twitter can be a time suck. But again, you have screen time and there are ways you can manage it. But on the flip side, it's actually a really excellent way and can be worth your time if you can use it effectively for growing your network and establishing new connections. Some people feel like they don't have anything interesting to say. I think everyone has a story. Everyone has their own expertise in their research. And the truth is that there's a conversation about everything on the internet. It's just whether or not you're a part of it right now. Or you can start the new conversation. There really is an audience and a community for everyone and everything. Some fear it's unprofessional. And if you do feel like you're unsure about what to and to not share, there are some societal and institutional rules and policies that you can take a look at. They're kind of vague now because this is a new world for these institutional policies, so they are changing. We have some guidelines that we'll talk about throughout the talk. And then finally, which this one didn't come up, this used, a year or two ago, this used to be an issue. People said that academics and scientists don't use social media. Hopefully you all know that that is not true anymore. We have Nobel Prize winners who are on social media. And then I just went and picked out a bunch of people who are affiliated with y'all's institutions who are using social media regularly. So people are absolutely using social media, people from the undergrad level, grad level, postdocs, assistant professors, associate professors, full professors, and provost chancellors of institutions, industry, and government are absolutely on Twitter. And so a couple of data points, 85% of scientists who share their or work on social media say it impacts the decisions that they make. There is some research, which we'll talk about in a little bit, about whether or not sharing your work on social media leads to citations. People frequently say that Twitter is the most used social platform for scientists. And there's actually people who are pushing for social media scholarship to be included in academic promotional packages. So people are actually putting their work that they do on social media in their CVs as actual work. And I can say now it has turned into part of my job, which I think is crazy, but it's become a really integral part of my job because of the huge benefits that I've gained from it. So this is just backing up to, the benefits of an online presence in general. I call it the 5 C's. So you can communicate with everyone, which we already talked about. You can connect with new people and make connections between different communities and different research points. You can start new collaborations. People are talking about their research, and you never know who you'll run into who's doing a technique or a method that would be cool for your own project. You can also curate your kind of personal learning network of accounts that you follow, funding organizations, and different things you can learn about. And so in the past, people used to just get the PubMed email alerts. You can actually follow different journals online now, and now they're just tweeting their articles. And for me, that's actually a much easier way for me to keep up with the literature. And then finally, you can create lots of new stuff. You can create a new community for your research. You can create new conversations and just new work in general. So really just it increases the visibility of your work. It is a main place where you can strengthen relationships. And finally, it's also a place where you can establish your credibility. People are going to Google you, and I encourage people to take an active presence on the internet and really curate what people are finding via that Google search. Because in 2020, if you're not online, you don't exist. It's kind of my method. Now, some people have very valid reasons for not being online. I totally understand that. There are safety concerns. I'm not saying everyone should be online, but if you're on the job market or something, think about your online presence. And if you don't want to be online, that actually takes a lot of work as well. And so Twitter is one of the ways that you can put yourself online. It is not the only way. It's the way a lot of people do, but there are a lot of chances for you to be online. One thing Twitter is great for is, as I said, these personal learning networks. So by following, a variety of different people and a lot of different voices on Twitter, you can actually find out about research you wouldn't normally be hearing about. We spend all of our time kind of stuck in our lab and going to the typical seminars that our department and our center puts on, which are great, but you can hear about so much more and so many more different types of research, just so many more different things than you could ever hear before. By following someone who goes to my university, Shayna, she is like an archaeologist, tells me about dinosaurs all the time, which I never would have heard about. I hear about squid research. I hear about just so many different areas of research I never would have been exposed to before. And I get exposed to it on a daily basis, as opposed to just that one big conference every year. It also really excels in community building. So this can either be based on scientists who study the same thing you study, or it can be based on one thing you have in common with a group of people, whether that be your race, your gender, your veteran status, your parent status. There's a kind of a subgroup mini communities for all of these different identities. And it can be good to find these other people and talk about your shared experiences. And by talking about your experiences, if you're comfortable with that, you're letting other people who aren't a part of that community hear about your story. And I think that's one of the best benefits of Twitter, is being able to hear about the experiences of other people through grad school. And that changes the way I do programming. It changes the way I think about science and the equity that's involved. It's also a wonderful place to hear feedback and ask for help. And actually, it's funny, I had Caroline's a screenshot of this up here a long time ago, before I knew she would be a part of this. I think on the day I was capturing this data, I was just looking for people asking questions. And so Caroline had asked about if people had an app for lab notebooks. And it's actually if you ever have a question, honestly, Twitter's a great place to go besides Google, because you're going to get some people giving you good responses that are actually legit. And then you can follow up with them in DMs if you need to hear some extra information. But there's certainly been times where I'm like, I know there's a technique, or this paper came out, I don't remember what it's called. Send a tweet and I know the answer in, a couple minutes. And finally, as I said, it's just a great place to increase your professional visibility. And so you can increase your own individual professional identity by, promoting your own expertise. But it also increases the visibility of your discipline and of your research as a whole, and of your institution. And so a secret is that your institution really wants to promote themselves. They have social media communicators, the professional people who do this, and they are always looking for stories, and they're always looking for people to feature. And I hate it when I see them, talking about the new research. They'll tweet about a new research, from the official UPenn account. They'll tweet about this cool new research that's going on, but because a scientist isn't on Twitter, they just have their name. And I feel like it's such a missed opportunity that if you're actually on Twitter, you could be promoted as that researcher who's doing that. So I took this a while ago. If any of you guys listen to the Hello PhD podcast, Josh is one of the hosts of that. He's at UNC, so he teaches a lot of these workshops as well. And he asked, the world, the scientific network in general, what have you gained from Twitter? And he got, see if this works, so many responses of people building new collaborations with people they've never met before, submitting papers, joining new communities, getting postdoc jobs, getting actual jobs, building connections, building entire new research programs based on something that they heard. There's just a wealth of information out there. And I'll go in and share my story as well of why I joined Twitter in the beginning. So I joined coming up on 3 years ago. I was in my second year of my postdoc. I was at the FDA and I was a bit isolated, and I knew I wanted to build my network and get out and get a job, because that's the goal, right? And also, if we reverse back to 2017, there was a new president, and there was a lot of threats to federal funding. And because I was a federal scientist at the time, I was like, I have to go tell the world that federal science matters, and I'm going to do that through my Twitter account with no followers. And so I got on Twitter, and, I started participating in the conversations, and, that's what finally pushed me to it. And I wanted to hear more about it. And I just figured, this would be fun, kind of build up my science communication. We'll just see what happens. And it's been such an amazing benefit to my career that I never would have expected. I've gotten connected to people who share similar interests. I've gotten to participate in national conversations. I've gotten asked to speak on panels, give presentations, go to conferences. I just got asked to do my first paper collaboration via Twitter DM last week. So it's really insane. I got to be on a BuzzFeed article. And I want to say that all of this was when I didn't have very many followers for the most part. I only have like a little over 2,000 now. And so it's taken me about 2 years to get there. I don't think I did anything. I didn't try to gain followers through that. But a lot of these opportunities came even when I had less than 1,000 followers. So I don't want people to think oh, these opportunities only come to people who work really hard and market themselves and use all the hashtags. It's just through participating in conversations. And, I got in a BuzzFeed article within 2 or 3 months of being on Twitter, and I didn't even have that many followers. I stayed anonymous because I was sure I was going to get fired, but I wasn't. But yeah, journalists will kind of just come into your DMs, and it happens. And this is one of my favorite stories about the power of social media and just where it can really take people. It's my favorite story because Passion Pit is one of my favorite bands. I don't know if anyone's heard of them, but Michael Angelikos back in 2017, and this was also the reason I got on Twitter, he was very open with his mental health and about the research and why it's important for federal agencies to fund scientific research. And so he was tweeting about that. Michael Wells, who's an MIT postdoc, was like, hey, I study that. Why don't you come into my lab? Just on a whim. And he said yes. He went and visited him in the lab, and then Michael Angelikos was so amazed by what he found in the lab. This is, a musician. He was like, this is amazing. And so he let Michael Wells take over his Twitter handle with hundreds of thousands of followers while Michael was at a neuroscience conference and going to Capitol Hill to advocate for federal funding, and let him live tweet for a couple days to all this new, people who didn't sign on to listen about neuroscience research, but now they were. And I just think that's the coolest story ever. And now they have a nonprofit that connects artists to scientists and advocates for science. So it's just you guys don't have to join Twitter with the goal of, inviting your favorite musician in. You could, you never know if they're around for a concert. But it's just really, you never know what will happen. Okay, so now back to 101. So we're going to break it down. This is a tweet. So you have at the top, you have your display name, and then you have the handle and the username. So the display name, you can change to whatever you want. You can change it every day if you want. You can have Kate Bradford, Dr. Kate Bradford. You can have Kelly Kapowski, whatever you want. And then the handle comes after the @ sign. So that is unique to you, and that can be changed, but it's a little bit harder. I don't recommend changing it often because this is how people find you and are connected to you. You then have your picture or avatar that's connected to your name. So in the body of the tweet, I think it's 240, 280 now, you can include the actual words in the content. You can mention other accounts. So a mention is when you do the little @ symbol and then the other account. So when you mention another account, they will get a notification that they're mentioned in this tweet. And then you have the hashtags, which a hashtag works like hashtags in Facebook and in Instagram. It just is kind of a tag for that conversation. And so if you click on that hashtag, you can look at every other tweet that includes that hashtag. So then you have the reply, the retweet, the like. So these are all different ways for other people to engage with this tweet. And we'll go through kind of the different levels of what those mean. The like is a heart, so you're not loving it, you're just liking it. I usually have to explain that to my older audiences who are using the platform. And then you have that little symbol, which is opens up more options where you can bookmark the tweet. I use this a lot to save a tweet if I want to reference it later. It's not the best function because then you just end up with like a laundry list of tweets that you saved and you don't remember why you saved them. But this is where you can also copy the link or send it to someone else in a DM. And then for your own tweets, if you've turned on your analytics, you have that little graph symbol that you can click to get the analytics of the tweet. And we'll go through analytics at the end. So the step one, I'm not sure if everyone here has signed up for Twitter. I guess I can't do a show of hands. But if any of you have not signed up for Twitter yet, or you're at this point where you're trying to figure out, do I make a new account? My recommendation is that if you've had a personal account and if you've had tweets going through that for a while and you don't really know what's back there, I would recommend going ahead and starting clean. Just starting with a fresh account. That's what I did. I was like, 2009 Kate can stay in this private account that no one follows, and then professionally, I'm going to be professional Kate. In this one, actually, I chose to have my full name in the Twitter handle. That way, it's easier for people when they're trying to mention me in a tweet, that it's easier to find. But that's kind of your choice for what you want to do. You just want it to be easily readable. Make sure that if you're using letters together, it doesn't spell out something that you didn't intend for it to spell out. I do recommend using your actual picture. Again, safety reasons, some people don't feel comfortable with that. It's just a way for people to actually recognize you. So this person recommended have a pic where your face can be clearly seen, as it will help you be recognized at conferences. And if you have a non-name handle, test it with other people to make sure it makes sense. So this is where I created the Google Sheet. So if you have a computer sitting in front of you, why don't we go ahead and visit that?
It's also in the comments now, the link.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think I have it pulled up here. Yeah, so in here you can go ahead while the workshop is going on and include your Twitter handle. That way we can all go follow each other. And for those of you who are new to Twitter, you'll automatically have like 10 followers. And hopefully you guys will support each other and like each other's tweets, because it is scary to do those first tweets.
I'm sorry, what's the link one more time?
Oh, yeah.
I was
I just erased it, didn't I? Here, it's down there.
Awesome, thank you.
So yeah, and then, throughout the conversation that we're having now, if you have like accounts that you really love, throw them in there. And if you have a hashtag that you think is awesome, throw it in there as well. Let you guys work on that.
Yeah.
What was it?
It's like our lab that we're all in.
Are you going to get to that last bullet too?
We're doing bios on the next one.
Okay.
Yeah. So while y'all are adding that, I'm going to go talk about your homepage. So this changes a lot. I think this is the most up-to-date homepage now. So you have the chance to kind of make this like your mini branded page, and you can have some fun with it. I am a microscopist. I wasn't, not doing it actively anymore, but I chose to just put up a picture of my microscopy from my postdoc. I made it pink because I wanted to, and then I included my picture. I choose to keep my picture my same headshot and be consistent between my work, my LinkedIn, and my Twitter profile picture, just to maintain that consistency across my platforms. And then, as I said, you have your display name and your handle or your username, where display name is easily changeable, handle is more difficult. And then you have your bio. So I recommend for your bio, instead of just saying you're a PhD student, kind of brand yourself whatever scientist you feel like you are. If you're a bioengineer, if you're a mechanical bioengineer, if you're a biophysicist, if you're a biophysical chemist, I don't know. Whatever words you want to use to describe yourself, go ahead and throw those words in there. If you do want to affiliate yourself with your institution, you can include your institution's account. So that would be at UPenn or at UPenn Medicine or whatever those accounts are. That way it kind of gives some validity to your account. It doesn't like tag the institution. They're not going to come police you, I'm pretty sure. And you can really kind of take the bio wherever you want. Some people, I put the views on my own. Honestly, I don't think that's like legally standing at all. A lot of people just do it. And I put my undergrad institution in there as well. I change my bio every few months just based on how I'm feeling. You can include a link. So if you link to like your lab webpage, I link to my LinkedIn, you know, whatever you want to. If you have a personal website or a blog, I recommend linking it to there. And then I also do something else where I have an introductory tweet to my page, and I tweeted that. And so it's actually a word cloud that you can do based on like all of my tweets for the past year. And so I just say, hey, this is what I tweet about. And I pin that to the top of my page. So if people are new to my page, they're going to know this is the things that I am talking about. So any questions about the account setup or anything?
How did you do that word cloud?
Good question. It was with some random account. I think it's like Tweetbot Cloud. I wish I could remember. I don't know if it's in, I may follow them. Hold on, let me see.
I think we found it.
Did you find it?
Yes, it's at Word and you.
Word Cloud or something?
Because
There may be a,
You could share it on
yeah.
if you want.
If I find it or if you find it, we can put it on the Google thing. I do it every year now. It's kind of like what I update every year, and it also kind of holds me accountable so I'm not tweeting too much nonsense. Okay.
I think Sarah R. has a couple questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it is Word Nola. Can you guys see this? No.
I can't see it.
Here, I can put it up actually.
Okay. So Sarah has some questions that I will just read. So when asking questions or sharing your experience publicly, yes, there's a chance that someone will send you a helpful answer on supportive feedback, but isn't it just as likely as, well, that you'll be given biased, incomplete, or misdirecting information, or receive negative feedback or criticism? Once you post something, it can get away from you and be misinterpreted. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. It's like any other place you're speaking publicly. There is the risk of getting supportive feedback as well as just the risk of getting negative feedback. For the most part, I would say my experience has been mostly positive. But again, I'm not tweeting anything that's too controversial. We'll go into some of the research topics can be hot topics, in which case you may need to exercise a little more caution. I've seen a lot of people who post about vaccines, CRISPR, even some types of animal research can invite the trolls in which case you just need to be a little more careful. And for that, I would kind of follow and see what the leaders in your field are doing and how they're talking about their topics, and kind of take their lead on how they're handling these topics. But yeah, Twitter absolutely has the negative sides of it. I would say my kind of rule for avoiding a lot of that is never speak in absolutes, which I realize I just spoke in an absolute. But if you're saying, oh, everyone who goes here thinks like this, or everyone who has had this experience had it exactly like this, that's when you're going to get that one person who had a different experience will say, nope, not everyone has that. And so as long as you kind of say a lot of people, or in my experience, or this was my opinion, or this is how I found something, then it's kind of, you're just speaking for yourself and not an entire group of people. I think can be a way to do it. Okay. So now that you have your profile, now you have to figure out who in the world do you follow out of all the people in the world that there could be? Luckily, Twitter actually, does its little algorithm and recommends you a lot of people to follow. So you can use that. Pretty easy to find a lot of people. My one thing is I know people are like, is it awkward to follow people that I kind of know or people that I don't know? Or is it awkward to follow this faculty member who works, upstairs? No. It's as long as they have a profile that is public and professional, they want people to follow them. And so they welcome that. And it's not awkward. It's not like LinkedIn where they can see you like creeping on their profile and looking. It's not like that at all. This is totally, which even LinkedIn now, it's like whatever. Everyone looks at people now. So I just kind of put together a list of different groups of things and people that you can follow. So obviously me, if you want to. CEMB also has a Twitter account. Next up, I recommend following your school. Some schools actually have like sub accounts for different like institutions within the school or different departments. Some of these are really active. Some of them are not active at all. What I recommend for schools, at least at Hopkins, has this great thing where you can go and find a list that the institutions have created. And so let me show you how to find that. So say we go to Penn. And I did not look beforehand, so I hope they have a list, but I'm not sure. So if you go to little dots, and then to view lists, they don't. That's annoying. Well, I'll show you Hopkins has a good one. So, but you can look at other institutions. So Hopkins, if I go to view lists, they actually have an entire list of professors, postdocs, and professionals that are affiliated. So you can just go and look at the different members on that and be like, follow, which is really great. So some societies use that. It just kind of depends on how good of a social media team they have it. So that's a great place to follow people. Another, again, is your department, your program, or your center may have something. And then if they don't have a list, just go look and see who they follow. For this workshop, I actually just looked at the CEMB Twitter account and saw who that account followed and used that to pick out different professors to feature. So student and postdoc groups are also a great place to follow. I know a lot of them will like kind of use it as their event advertisements. Professional societies are great ones to follow. Academic journals will obviously be tweeting their articles, and then funding organizations. So a lot of the NIH institutes and centers have Twitter feeds, and they will post reminders and updates about their grants and funding opportunities. And then finally, faculty. And I say, no, really, like definitely follow the faculty. In my sense, faculty are just as new and cautious about Twitter as we are. And it really like eliminates the walls between grad students and postdocs and faculty. Like they are just like us on there trying to figure it out, trying to figure out what memes are cool and what GIFs are cool and how to write threads. So this is really where you are all on the same level in the Twitter world. So after you find accounts, the next level is hashtags. I will say I am not as much of a user as hashtags as I could be. Whenever you're tweeting about your research, I recommend trying to figure out which hashtag goes with your research. Obviously, there's mechanobiology, but there could be any other number of different hashtags that work for your research. And so to find those, just, everyone in your field who's tweeting about it, see what hashtags they use. If you have a hashtag for your society, see if they have any recommendations. There's also a ton around grad school or STEM life, what a scientist looks like, scientists do selfie, with a PhD, academic Twitter, PhD life, postdoc life. You can use these for your everyday life and experience in grad school or in the lab. There are a number of different career-based hashtags, PhD jobs, postdoc jobs. I do see postdocs posted on Twitter, and there are a lot of faculty members, especially the newer faculty members, who are using Twitter to advertise their open postdoc positions. Science policy is also really big on Twitter, as well as SciComm. And then, as I talked about earlier, the communities on Twitter, this is where I think really Twitter really thrives, is these micro communities. Well, they're not even micro, they're huge communities of people. But you may not have these same people at your own institution, but you can find them through Twitter, which is wonderful. And then there's the silly ones. I love cats. If anyone's followed me, you obviously know that. And so I found a number of people through the shared interests of cats has actually expanded my academic science network more than any other thing, because just finding other people who like cats and then I all of a sudden hear about all of their science too is really cool. And then every Valentine's Day, people will do the academic Valentine, like roses are red, violets are blue. You'll see those pop up in a month or so, which are usually really funny. And then you have the cool ones, which if you're trying to figure out what to tweet, I remember doing these kind of 6-word peer review or the emoji thesis, or trying to tweet your entire thesis in one tweet. It's just kind of a cool science communication practice to try to do, which emojis, there's so many more emojis now, it's probably easier that you have like DNA and bacteria. And so I included that in the Google Doc. If you have any more that you recommend, please throw them in the Google Doc. So now we comes to the tweet. So I know that tweeting, for people who are new to it, doing that first tweet under your professional name is really scary. Is that what you guys find? I thought it was scary. I was like, oh, I'm second guessing myself. What if I have a typo? And then finally I was talking to my friend and he was like, you know what? You have no followers. No one's listening to you. Just do it. Just do it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. No one's listening to me. And, for the first few months, it was just kind of figuring out, like, how do you talk in 240 characters or 280 characters? And it's a different language exercise. And really, I say with Twitter, you can't find your voice if you don't use it. And so it does take a while to develop your voice and to figure out how to talk in the Twitter world and how to converse with each other, because it's a different sort of communication than in person or on other platforms. So I recommend now, how are we doing on time? If we wanted to, you guys could start to compose your tweet. And you can talk about your research, you can mention your school. This can be kind of your pinned tweet that you want. Hey, I'm so-and-so, I study, I don't know what you guys study. The structure of something.
Hydrogels.
Yeah, hydrogels and shearing forces on cells and cardiac brains. I don't know. I'm just making up words. And you can mention your school, use the hashtag. You can say, hey, I'm in a Twitter workshop right now, if you want, really whatever you want. If you want to make it better, you can include a picture or a GIF. There's actually the ability now right on the Twitter thing. So there's the pictures, the little mountains is where you can include a picture. There's a GIF library built into Twitter, so you can just choose from there. And then there's graphs, and there are its own set of emojis. There's that option. And we're going to keep moving along because I talk too much. But for those of you who are just getting started, it is totally okay to just lurk. And what I mean by that is just kind of follow along, listen to the conversations that are happening, see how people interact with each other, what types of things they respond to, how they talk about their research. And that way you just kind of get a feel and then kind of like tiptoe in to tweeting more. And so one thing that's great on Twitter is you can actually talk about your research. And in the past, the main method for talking about your research was through publishing a paper. But really, in this day and age, you kind of have to do more in order to get your research out there. And so if you do publish a paper, I recommend trying to write an entire Twitter thread to explain your research and do it in a way that kind of eliminates some of the jargon and makes it accessible to a broader audience. Other things you can tweet about, again, if you need help, ask it. If you receive a fellowship or get rejected from a fellowship, you can celebrate or commiserate. So Denny Wirtz, that middle tweet, he's the vice provost for research at Hopkins. So really big name, really successful scientist. And a few months ago, he just tweeted that he got a terrible score on a research grant. And I love that he tweeted that because it normalized the failure in science that so many of us have to deal with. And so that's another aspect of Twitter that I like, is that people are sharing their failures and realizing that, you know, it doesn't have to be a highlight reel of only the high points of science. You can also tweet other people's research that's published and say, this is really cool because of this or because of that. You can talk to if the main author is on Twitter, you can tweet at them and ask them questions about it. And so this is a question I get a lot is, do tweets increase citations? And honestly, I think the research is a little sketchy on whether or not it increases the citation rate of publication. What I can say is that tweets do increase the visibility of your publication, and they do increase not only how many people see it, but how many people download it, which the ultimate of what we want to do with our science is get people to read it. And so there's actually an article recently through Academic Medicine. So they actually had a planned social media campaign for some of their older articles. And so this was through a journal. They had this. So they had a built-in audience. And basically, they tweeted these old articles and compared them to other articles that weren't tweeted. And of course, like anything, if you have a marketing campaign for something, it's going to increase the visibility. Mm-hmm. There also is this program or this platform called Altmetric. So Altmetric is basically digital media analytics for papers. And so it's a more, instead of just relying on citations, you can actually use Altmetrics to see how many news articles, how many tweets, how many blog posts, Facebook posts, what else do they have? They have a number of other different categories, but you can actually just go look at any paper and hit the Altmetric button, and it'll create this little graph and number based on how much it's been shared publicly, which is pretty cool. So the thing about Twitter is it's not just you creating your own content. It is totally a conversation. And I think actually for those of you who are new to Twitter, this is the place where you can really start to engage with Twitter. The easiest is through engaging with other people's tweets. And so a reply is obviously a direct reply to a tweet that's going to be right under the tweet that was done. Like is obviously you are just liking it, but be aware that all the tweets that you like show up in your followers' feeds. So if you like something, it's public. If you retweet something, this is going to automatically post it to your own feed. If you retweet something, there's also the option to retweet with a comment, and so that's when you retweet and it adds a comment at the top. So I think this is a really great method for, you know, if there is a research article that's posted, say, hey, this research article is cool because da 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 da, or I agree with this because this is this, or I disagree with this because blah blah blah. So these are just other tweets that kind of back this up, is that you join the conversation, and if people are having a conversation publicly, it is totally okay to join in and say, hey, you know, you guys are talking about this, I think this way, or this is my opinion about this, or I've had this story, or what about this option? It's not interrupting, that's just how it is. If they wanted to have a private conversation, they could have it through DMs or outside of the platform. And then finally, this is another big question. How professional do I have to be, and what types of things am I allowed to share? My ultimate thing is that you are a human and you are not a robot. And this platform, unlike LinkedIn, is more personable. You can get away with more humor. Caroline has been doing some amazing puns lately. And that's where I think Twitter excels, is that you can have fun with it and you can have a personality. You can share hard stories. You can share stories that make people uncomfortable just so people hear those stories because they need to be heard. So this is the Ninja Turtle I was talking about earlier. Maureen, actually every Saturday she volunteers at a cat shelter. She tweets pictures of the cats. And I think that's probably how I found her, but she's also a microbiologist, so that's, you know, now I can learn about her research through there. So it's because people have engaged and created a relationship based on, you know, other topics besides science. It then just strengthens that relationship. I've also seen a lot of people do kind of a combined, their science plus something else. One of my favorite accounts, she is in Australia. She is a chemist, PhD student, and she talks about the chemistry of beauty products, which I just find fascinating. So she provides really robust peer-reviewed data about beauty and wellness products. You can also talk about really anything. I know that's more girly, but whatever. This is one of my favorite ones. This scientist actually kind of hopped on the new train of the Star Wars stuff and tweets about his fish research, and I guess his fish is a gar, so he does this whole series of tweets about his research called Gar Wars, which I thought was really funny. And so you're allowed to be a little bit unbuttoned on this platform. That being said, it is public. And how much of your platform do you want to be, not science versus science? And I hesitate to ever give you guys a prescriptive of 75% of this needs to be professional and 25% can be fun. Because I honestly don't know how much either way. I think you shoot for the majority to be more professional than not, whatever that may be for you. And I say you can tweet whatever you want, but it is a public place, so it's whatever you are comfortable with. Politics is a hot button thing. Some people say they don't want to tweet politics at all, and some people are absolutely like, how can you not tweet about politics? So again, that's your personal thing. It is public, so if you're okay with it being on the front page of the news, then tweet it. Now, I don't think anyone on here is a medical doctor, but if you are a medical practitioner, there are a different set of rules there. Or if you do deal with patient data, and kind of going into the professionalism and ethics of things, I love this because it just sums it up nicely. Don't lie, don't pry, don't cheat, can't delete, don't steal, and don't reveal. So if you guys do deal with patient data or research that is not published yet, proceed with caution. Because rules and ethics still apply. I've done this for medical practitioners, and there's a whole world of medical ethics on social media, which I don't need to go into for you guys, but this is kind of responsible conduct of research on social media, is that you are still a researcher, and scientists in this day and age have a lot of pressure we're under a lot of pressure from a lot of different places because there's a lot of different misconceptions about who scientists are. And being a scientist publicly and putting your information out there is really difficult to do because there's a lot of misunderstanding. So don't lie about your data and don't distort your data, and make sure you're not misleading the general public. So when can you share your research results? So this is your own personal research results. If it is published or if it's pre-printed, absolutely share away, especially if it's pre-printed, because that's how you're going to get feedback on it. If it's unpublished, that is kind of your choice about what level of research you want to publish. I recommend, especially if you're a PhD student, talk to your advisor about what types of things you could share. If you're doing a technique, you can walk someone through the technique. Like I used to do bone marrow extractions. And so I know when one time I was in my postdoc, I was like, I'm just going to walk people through a week of what it's like to harvest bone marrow, to differentiating it into macrophages, and then doing my infection. And so I just did a series of tweets, kind of explaining the step along the way in real time of how long it takes from, I think I kind of eliminated or glossed over the fact that I was sacking a mouse, because I didn't want to share that part. But just kind of walking through that would be okay versus actually sharing, the actual end goal of my research. If you're dealing with anything patient, that's a whole other thing, and that I recommend I have some resources for you to work with that type of information. As we talked about earlier, there are some hot topics. I meant to add vaccines on here. Animal research, fetal research, stem cells, CRISPR, vaccines. I'm sure you guys can think of others. I remember a story about a grad student who studied songbirds, and she just got found by PETA and roasted. It was a really, really, really terrible situation. And I think knowing PETA, that organization, I think there was safety issues involved. So just be aware that there are extremists out there. And then also consider your own wellness and your privacy and your safety. So this is kind of where I say Twitter is one way to advance your career. It is not the only way. So if you feel stressed out about it, if it makes you anxious, or if you just don't like it, get off of it. It's not worth it. It's not worth your own mental health to stress about it. I've definitely taken breaks. It's not on my phone anymore. I try to tweet only from 9 to 5 at work. And I sound like extremist about this, but it can really overtake your life if you let it. I also, manage your time appropriately. If it's not part of your job, then make sure it's not getting in the way of your job that you're getting paid to do. It can complement your job, but just make sure it's not getting in the way of anything. And then also your security and privacy. There are a number of different settings that you can set. I recommend making sure your location is off. Otherwise, it shares everywhere you tweet. That's just my own personal thing. I don't like to share my location. I don't tweet about where I live in Baltimore. I try not to tweet, going on vacation. Even this week, I knew I had to tweet that I was going to be in Philly, and I didn't like that. That makes me nervous. But maybe I'm just weird and conservative about that. But just be aware that there are a lot of security and privacy settings that you can turn on and off. So what is public? So your tweets, your retweets, your replies, your likes, and who you follow. And these tweets do show up in a Google search. And I have no idea why certain tweets show up higher than others. For some reason, a lot of time when I Google myself, the one tweet I did about The Bachelor shows up higher than anything else, and I don't even tweet about The Bachelor, and it didn't even get a lot of likes. So I don't understand the Google algorithm, but just be aware that those tweets do show up in your Google search. DMs, so direct messages, are not public, but it's the internet, so screenshots exist. So they're not that private. And then finally, I hate having to do this, but you're going to get creeps and trolls in your DMs. A lot of times it'll be creepy dudes just being like, hey, beautiful, are you married? It's gross. I hate it. Don't engage. I don't even it's so creepy and uncomfortable. I just immediately block it and delete it because I don't even want to start to engage with it. And I hate that happens. And if that makes you uncomfortable, you can turn off your DMs, which is, just turn off. I've definitely gotten to the point where I wanted to do that. It's gross. And if people do get creepy, within the actual Twitter feed, again, I just say block them. They're not you can see who's a troll pretty easily. And then so finally, I want to have time for this. So bringing Twitter into the real world. So this is the actual real world results of being on this thing. And so this is where I recommend that if you have an email signature, you can have your Twitter handle in there. You can put it on your business card. If you see people that you follow in real life, say hi. I love people coming up to me and saying they follow me. I love seeing people that I follow. I just got to meet Caroline, who I've followed for forever. It's really fun. The head of social media for Hopkins recognized me at a bus stop and said hi to me. So and when you go to a conference, you'll see all these people. It's really fun to do that. So quick notes on conference Twitter. I know we're running short on time. This is my favorite part of Twitter. And so if you're going to a conference, this is where it really comes alive for me. Make sure you find the hashtag. Some societies are really good about this, and some are not, about publicizing this beforehand. Follow your society, obviously, and if they have rules, try to read them. Society for Neuroscience actually created these graphics that you can put on your poster about whether or not you want people to take pictures. But really, in the absence of this visible sign or without permission, I think a lot of places the kind of rule is don't take pictures and don't tweet the pictures is kind of the general rule. And then the Gordon conferences are absolutely don't tweet anything. So to increase your visibility while you're there, definitely promote your session and add your handle to your slides if you want. If you can do this, absolutely live tweet some of the talks. Again, make sure you follow the rules and credit the speaker and be professional with your critiques. I am terrible at live tweeting. I don't understand how people can pay attention and tweet at the same time. So I can't do it, but I admire the people who do it because now they're sharing the conference with those who weren't able to go there. So it's a great way for you to attend a conference without spending thousands of dollars to go. And then finally, it's where you can network. So when you go to a conference, you can see all the other people who are tweeting at the conference, and that's automatically people you can follow. You can meet up with people that you followed and interacted with for a long time. Just shoot them a DM and say, hey, I'm going to this conference. Like, let's totally meet up. A lot of conferences will have what they call tweet ups, which is basically just a meetup for everyone who's on Twitter. And that's where I feel like I've met kind of my closest friends on Twitter that I've followed for years now, was at those tweet ups. So for those of you who want to do more advocacy and outreach through Twitter, you do have to gain a bigger following. So this was some work that was done with a small sample of like 100 faculty members, and they basically found that if you have under 1,000 followers, you're basically kind of in an echo chamber of just tweeting to other scientists who are in your field. And it's that at this threshold of 1,000 followers is when you can start kind of breaking through to other audience members. So if you are interested in kind of science communication aspect of things, I recommend looking into ways to growing your platform, and you'll have to be more strategic with hashtags and following and participating in conversations. So always consider your audience. There's a dejargonizer linked there as well. And then finally, a couple of things of advanced Twitter. I talked about the pinned tweets. So this is anything you tweet, you can pin it to the top of your profile, so it's always there. You can do polls. I've never actually really done a poll, but I'll always click on them if people ask. And these can be research-based questions. They can be silly questions. They can be opinion questions, whatever. And then threads and analytics. So threads. So this is where you can really tell a story through Twitter. And basically a thread is a series of connected tweets that talk about a topic or explain a concept or elaborate on your opinion about something. So Twitter actually made it a lot easier to write a thread a few months ago. You can actually draft an entire thread without tweeting it, which is awesome. You used to have to tweet it and then reply to that tweet and then reply to that one. But now you can draft an entire thread, so there's a little plus sign. Include a little notification in the thread that says it is a thread. You can do this a couple of different ways. This example I have just has the number 1/, and that indicates that this is a number 1 tweet in a series of, I think, what ended up being 40 tweets, which was a long one. But Emily yesterday, or a couple days ago, I love this. She is a cancer scientist, and she was like, I'm just going to talk about the science of cat coat genetics, and tweeted this entire really thorough thread on the actual genetics and the genes behind the colors of cats. And it got really popular. So with these threads, people love when you include a visual. So these can be emojis. GIFs are a really fun way to explain your research through a GIF or a meme. I've seen some people do some really fantastic explanations of their research using GIFs. And it's just funny, and then it's way more memorable. If you are tweeting about a new piece of research, I recommend linking the research as kind of the final tweet or the first tweet of this thread. And analytics, so there is a whole analytics section of Twitter. You have to go turn it on, and it's under, I can't remember where it's open, under the native tools of Twitter. But it basically gives you a summary of how many tweets you've done, the impressions. So an impression is how many people saw your tweet. So that's when they were scrolling. If your tweet was on there when they were scrolling, that would be an impression. And so the more you get retweeted, then you're shown to more people and more audience members. So if anyone is a data nerd, these can be really fun to look at. And then you can look at the analytics of just one tweet. So this is one that I did a couple years ago, where I was asking to see if naively tweeted this on my way out of the office and woke up to 140 postdoc opportunities in my inbox. So this one was my first one that kind of blew up. but it actually had like real life impact. And so you can go and look at that. And so this can show you how many people clicked on your profile from a tweet, how many people liked it, retweeted it, followed you, clicked on the actual link that you included. So if any of you guys are into marketing and analytics, this can be really fun. Or you can just not care about it. Also that too. And so that is where I will end this. So this is the future. Yeah, do you guys follow Last
Yeah,
Jerry
is amazing.
Yeah, I am not on TikTok. I am resisting.
I'm like, I can't add one more thing.
Yeah. I downloaded it once and lost 3 hours of my life. But I feel like this is coming, and a lot of people, there's a lot of scientists on Instagram now. So I don't know if these workshops will turn into Instagram or TikTok in the future, but I will be teaching it. Yeah, so thank you guys, and I will like kind of just switch over to the questions now, and then we can, I have the survey link too. Do you want to do that after, Annie?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay. I mean, we also have a few questions here, but maybe we can include Liz and So maybe Caroline and Liz, both of you can like introduce yourself for like a minute or so, and then we can start the Q&A together with Kate. Caroline, do you want to start?
Yeah, go ahead and start.
Is my sound on? Ooh, it is. Yeah, I'm Caroline. I'm a postdoc at Princeton, but previously I was a grad student at Penn in Arjun Raj's lab, so in the bioengineering department. I've been on Twitter for 3 years, and it's awesome. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can talk for a minute about Twitter either, but my name's Liz Haswell, and I'm a professor of biology here at WashU, and I'm not sure how long I've been on. I would guess 3 years sounds about right, and it is, yeah, it's great. I think it's fun to talk about the ways in which it can enrich your scientific life, but it's also, I liked hearing everything that I just heard about ways to roll it also.
Good.
Yeah, so where should we start?
Are there any questions in the room right
Actually,
now?
I would love to hear how each of you kind of got started on Twitter, because I kind of introduced myself and gave that story. So, or like why you started.
Yeah. So I actually started when I published my first author paper. My PI was on Twitter, and he was like, it would be great to, explain it to people. And that was a great way to get followers. I think the best way to get followers and to get in conversations is to either explain what you work on, explain what someone else works on, just to sort of like provide content that's valuable and useful for other people. So by explaining my own paper, I got a few followers and then continued like following other scientists.
So I don't remember. So I just looked up my profile. Apparently I joined in 2009. So I guess I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't think I really realized that. I'm not. I actually think I started on Twitter not from a social justice perspective. I think that was. I started following events in St. Louis around Ferguson, and I was seeing it as a way to follow political events. And I think it was maybe only in the last maybe 5 years that I've started seeing it more as something that I do as part of my career, the way to create more community through my work. Yeah. For me, it was more following what was happening in the world faster and unfiltered through news agencies. Yeah.
I have a question here which might be related to that one. So Sarah asked, can having a public display of your professional face make you feel obligated to establish a brand, like a brand of success or passion for a specific subject? Or can your efforts to establish and maintain this brand lead you to make career decisions that aren't really reflective of your authentic self, or make people draw incorrect conclusions about your expertise or your personality? long question.
I mean, I would say that Kate laid it out like so nicely that, she loves cats. And so talking about both cats and science are things she enjoys doing. And it's not like talking about cats makes her seem less professional. It actually helps her connect to other scientists who also talk about cats. So I wouldn't say that you have to be an academic robot. There's no reason to only talk about science. I think it's just a tool that can help you find new papers, talk about science, and then also talk about other things if you want.
Yeah, I think you have to think about what your goals are going in. And it's also okay for those goals to evolve over time. If your goal is to get yourself noticed, to get your work noticed, then you're going to go about it in a different way than if your goal is so for example, my articulated goal right now on Twitter is to promote plant science, to promote mechanobiology, and to promote a scientific culture. What did I write? To promote scientific culture that values diversity, sustainability, and authenticity. So that's my stated. That's that's our lab mission, but that's also why I'm on Twitter. So then I can think about when I'm tweeting, am I doing that? And you can also look and see what people respond to. So I have on occasion engaged in political Twitter, real politics, not science politics, but just politics, and nobody responds. Those get 0 likes. Nobody cares. Whoever my followers are, they are not interested in my opinion about the Trump administration or any of that. So I just sort of took that as some feedback, and I don't really follow up on that. I follow a lot of scientific feeds, but I don't, political feeds, but I don't tend to initiate or retweet with comments on those. So I think the key is to think about why you're doing it and what you want to get out of it, and that will help you. And if that's coming from a real place of engagement, then it doesn't end up coming off as fake or inauthentic.
I would also say that some of these questions are sort of dealing with concerns of how you present yourself and what you're going to say. I do find that a lot of my friends get a lot of benefit from Twitter, even if they never say anything. So you can totally take that route. You find a lot of papers, you can hear about cool science that people are doing. If you don't feel comfortable saying anything, you can still get a lot out of it, I think.
Yeah, lurking is fine.
Yeah. And I would say as far as brand, it's really only these past, let's say, we've had a new vice provost that is kind of dotted line, my boss, and he's really big about his employees being on social media. So it's really only recently that it's become an actual part of my job, and that there are times it feels creepy that I am strategically tweeting and I want him to like it. And it's I know that I am promoting myself in my office, and that we're doing good things if I can get my vice provost to look at this. That being said, I also, kind of see it as a success if certain faculty members are engaging with this, and I'll let my office know that, oh, so-and-so liked this, you're going into a meeting, they are aware of this initiative or this programming that's going on. There are actually, sometimes this feels so creepy to say, but there was one time where we were dealing with a new program, and their student had tweeted that they really enjoyed the program, and the student was a member of this faculty member we were working with, and then he was like, oh, she's tweeting about it, maybe I should talk to you guys about it. So there's some behind the scenes kind of awareness of what's going on, but that's really only recently, and that's really only because of my job that it's now become a little more thoughtful and strategic. But yeah, I can still be okay. He actually was talking the other day. He loves when I tweet GIFs. So that's fine. Sorry, my computer's dying, so I'm going to get my plug.
Question on this. So we've talked a lot about the use of Twitter in academia, but this is kind of a mix of my question and one of these questions from the survey. But if you're going into industry or thinking about going into industry, is Twitter useful? How is that useful for it? And are there other precautions that you need to take to go into an industry, like to try to go into an industry position than like how freely you can tweet in academia?
I mean, I actually think. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I have like nothing to say on this topic other than I see people from industry tweeting for sure, especially pro GMO tweets. You see Phil Taylor from Monsanto tweeting a lot. It tends to be all very positive though. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sure you have something more useful to say.
No, not really. I follow a lot of people who are in industry. I think actually one of the benefits of Twitter is like in my daily life, I'm only exposed to academic scientists, but on Twitter, I follow people in industry and who do like science communication professionally and like science writers. And it's actually a great way to hear about other career paths. And even you can DM someone and say, what is your job like? How did you get into that path? In terms of professionalism in industry, I guess probably the same guidelines apply, that your job may not want you tweeting about unpublished data, stuff like that, but I don't imagine it's so different.
I mean, I would guess that some of the more sort of pedantic tweeters like Jonathan Eisen, like there are some basic biology tweeters that are pretty combative and controversial, and I would suspect that would be less, that you might feel less freedom to do that in industry. So if you just stay on the positive side of things, it would probably be fine.
Yeah, when you have the shield of tenure, people tend to be, you know.
Yeah, you were talking about the provost, and I mean, one of my favorite Twitter experiences was when I actually called out our provost on Twitter for, he was criticizing biology or science faculty at WashU for not having enough active learning in our courses, and I had opinions about that I put on Twitter, and it led to a in-person meeting, and now like a really good friendship with our ex-provost who's now the editor of Science, by the way. And so now I have like this great relationship with somebody that I would have never, I think running around WashU would probably have never had contact with by being negative. It doesn't always have to be a positive spin if there's something. So I think one of the pieces of advice, I had spent a little bit of time trying to think about pieces of advice, and I think being positive and trying to lift people up as much as possible is a really good way to go. And that person should not always be you. Honestly, I feel like Twitter is there to build everybody up, but I think that there are also moments where constructive criticism is also really useful. You just want to think about choosing those moments wisely and be thinking about where you want to place your energies. And, I'm obviously in a different position than all you young people where it's easier, I have the tenure shield. But I think, bringing up things that you don't like about scientific culture or even about a paper on Twitter is not bad inherently, as long as there's something constructive about what you're doing.
Yeah, actually, I think one of the coolest things about Twitter is like having a voice to like societies and journals. And like one thing that many people have done is if you see like a panel or a conference where it's like all men or like all white people are the invited speakers, it's really easy to say, look, this is a problem, like let's discuss this, and people will listen to you.
Yeah,
so
it's changed a lot of conference spaces for sure, that approach.
No questions. Any other questions?
Okay, I think I can go ahead. I
Yeah.
have one question, like how to manage time between your lab work life and Twitter life.
Yeah, did you guys hear that? How do you manage time between lab and Twitter? And I'll let y'all take it.
I mean, your job is the lab. Like that is definitely the priority. I think of Twitter as like basically a leisure activity. I mean, I definitely use it to find papers and to talk with scientists. but it's more of a, like, if I need a 5-minute break during lunch or something, I'll go on Twitter. But unlike Kate, where it really is part of her job, for me, it's like definitely takes second tier to my actual lab work.
I think I'm somewhere in between the two of you, where I do see it as sort of part of my daily routine. And when I'm promoting things like papers from my own lab or for the podcast that I'm part of, if I'm doing those things, then I actually have it scheduled in. I make sure I always do those at a certain, I find early morning on Mondays is the best time to get the most interaction, because a lot of my community is in Europe. So I do a lot of tweeting at that time. So I do kind of schedule it. I mean, I think the key is just to not do it when you should be doing other things. and not get too sucked into political spirals, for sure. That's something I probably could work on more.
Yeah, I think I really shifted. I think it was November, like Thanksgiving, not this past Thanksgiving, but the Thanksgiving before. There was like a huge argument about how to get postdocs and whether or not PIs should post postdocs or not, and about the equity behind it. And I find myself getting really angry when I was at home on vacation about Twitter. And I was like, you know what? This is an important concept, but I'm not at work and I don't want to think about this right now. So that's when I really started kind of setting some boundaries for myself. So now I don't have Twitter on my phone, although I'm really guilty of still being signed down on Safari. But I try to consider it part of my job now, just so I don't scroll a lot. But I can't not look at
it. I can chime in just as an audience member who has been using Twitter. I usually look at Twitter on my commute. So I take the train every day.
Good idea. Okay,
and so for me, I'm like, okay, I give like half of my train ride to like scroll through Twitter at that time. So I get it usually twice a day. So it's like, and I try to keep it to that. Just, it helps me keep informed, keep in touch, but nothing that's like invasive to my work as a postdoc.
Question, though.
Kind of go through the questions on the survey. You answered a lot of them, like in your presentation. I had one question of my own, but if you want to build like a follower base, and we touched on this times, if you want to build a follower base, you have to like go through and follow a bunch of people first to build a base, or like can you just rely, like at what point do you make the decision of like I just gotta follow like 100 more people to like get more followers? Is that like a good approach to try to build your base?
You're not going to get followers by following people.
Right,
you're going to get followers by creating content that people are intrigued by and want to follow, right?
Yeah, I would say two things. One is that, so there are sort of two types of tweets. One is like, oh, I like this paper. Another one is, I like this paper because XYZ. And the second one is much more valuable to other people. Like when you're providing a service, like even if it's just a joke or a summary of your paper, that is going to get a lot more likes and more follows if you're providing something that people can sort of benefit from. Then the second thing is, don't be shy to get in conversations. Ask people to retweet you. Like if you're asking a question and you only have 5 followers, say, please retweet me so I can reach a broader audience. That can really help boost people following you, people answering those questions.
Also, if something I've seen people doing more and more is people creating profiles that are a subject profile. So instead of their profile being their name, like there's one profile that's just like this particular plant ion channel. It's like the name of, it's like NRT 1.2. Like the name of the profile is a really interesting plant ion channel, and that who I don't even know who it is, but that person retweets everything they see in the literature about plant ion channels. So I follow them. They have a ton of followers because they've indicated in their profile like what the interest is. So if you were to call yourself if Natasha was to not be at Natasha or whatever she is, but to be like plant cortical microtubule, at plant cortical microtubules, then everybody who works on that would be following her because they would know, what her interests were. So that's just another thing I see more and more people doing that I think is kind of adorable.
I'm taking a picture. Yeah, I wish I could find, like, I could be more strategic with trying to figure out why people follow me, but it's often not at the tweets I would expect. It's like I can be really thoughtful about some tweets that I think are really awesome and provide really good content. And I don't know if it's because of the time I tweeted them or people just don't care about it. They'll get like really low engagement. And then I'll say something dumb with like a dumb meme and it'll be like go insane. I get hundreds of likes and I'll get a lot of followers from that. So it's just.
It doesn't make any sense. I got the most likes ever on a tweet that was just me announcing that I had been promoted.
Yeah, hey, that's good.
Yeah, there's no content there, people. There's nothing there.
Yeah, mine was that I kept a fish alive for 4 years, and people are like, "Whoa, I'm gonna follow you." Like,
I actually have another question, if it's okay. So I'm a postdoc now at Penn, and I'm interested in how. So, and I would say I'm not. Like, I don't have a ton of followers, but I'm, like, in the maybe 500 range. Mm-hmm. So I'm, like, I follow quite a few accounts. I think I'm very interested in how this could potentially be leveraged maybe a year from now or 2 years from now when I'm considering kind of, like, the faculty track. So I know a lot of universities will put out notifications saying, like, hey, we're hiring. But part of me is, like, I don't know. I feel like faculty... The whole thing is very nebulous to me now, but I'm curious if there's a specific maybe Twitter thing where we could potentially leverage our accounts or our presence and, to help us get in the door for an interview kind of thing. I don't know.
I have two sort of related thoughts about that. One is that just by like being on Twitter and talking about my research, and then, so I have been in my postdoc for a year. So when I started looking for my postdoc, I said, I'm looking for a postdoc. And I got like job offers or people being like, you should think about my lab. So just having people know your name is helpful from that perspective. Then the other thing is, especially for chemistry, but for other academic fields too, there are people on Twitter who will collect lists of all the job postings for that academic cycle. So that doesn't promote you, but it can be really helpful for like finding things to apply to. So looking for people doing that and those accounts is really helpful.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think about the answer to your question. Like, we're doing a search in our department right now, and I haven't like looked up anybody's Twitter account or anything. I think the place where it comes in the most helpful is really the informal networking part of it, where people just know who you are, and that you can really advance, I would say, at meetings where you tweet what other people are doing. Get people to tweet a picture of you giving a seminar. Wow, great seminar at WashU. It was amazing. I want to work on what she's working on, right? And then you can do the same thing for your friends, right? I just saw this great talk at the retreat by my pal, Natasha. Sorry, Natasha. I keep picking on you. It's because you invited me. So I think it's more the informal stuff. But I mean, I do put my Twitter stuff on my CV, but I don't think that's something that at the assistant professor level is that we would even look at or consider.
Yeah, I get asked that a lot about like what types of online presence you should have for the faculty search, and it's so new, it's not consistent across faculty searches. Is basically what I found. Like, does a LinkedIn profile matter? Some people look, some people don't. Does Twitter? Some people. Does a personal website? It can kind of vary. I don't think it's going to be a deciding factor, but like Liz said, it can always grow your network, which is great, and it can always grow new collaborations and that type of thing. I mean, if you happen to have someone on your faculty search who loves Twitter and they say you have Twitter, like, would that bias them? I don't know. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, other questions? Or one more question?
There's one more question.
We can always get more opinions on because there is a long list, and I don't want to be like the only opinion for those questions that I guess I covered during the talk.
I wondered if there's one other thing that I wondered if you had mentioned was that the way in which people sometimes use Twitter to gather information.
Mm-hmm.
So you see more and more people saying, hey, Twitter friends or tweeps or whatever, I'm trying to find resources for active learning, or I'm trying to get a sense of the answer to this scientific question. And so it can actually be a great place to ask questions and get answers. I don't know if you covered that as much as
very early.
Yeah, okay,
very
I
early.
missed it.
Yeah, but absolutely. I think that's why I said it's better than Google sometimes, because sometimes you'll get like an actual person who can tell you about the method or the discipline.
Yeah, I've been doing like new protocols, and I ask people like what kit did they like or what protocol did they use or something like that, and you can get people to answer very quickly.
It's like the new ResearchGate.
Is ResearchGate like?
It was hot for a minute, and then it was where you could get help like that, but then it's like it died.
It died pretty quickly. Yeah. I'm telling people now, there's ResearchGate and academia.edu, both of which have been sued. So Google Scholar profiles, and they're kind of like the safe one.